The moment he saw the mark on her shoulder, it wasn't just recognition. He felt the blade in his own hands. 7 centuries ago, he had wounded the woman he loved most to save her, and he died for it. There are marks we're born carrying. Science calls them genetic flukes, biological coincidences, nature's whims. But what if some marks were memories? What if some signs on the body were promises the soul refuses to forget? When Ethan Sterling saw that mark on Olivia Hayes' shoulder, he didn't just recognize the design. He felt in his own ghost hands the weight of the blade that had made it. And for one eternal second, 700 years vanished like smoke. This is the story of how a birthmark proved that some souls simply refused to forget. Olivia Hayes was 29 when her entire life fit into 2 old suitcases and a pink children's backpack. Her daughter, Lily, 5 years old, held her hand tightly as she stared at the glass and steel building ahead of them. The Sterling Grand Hotel rose like a crystal giant in the center of Miami, so different from the 1-bedroom apartment they'd just lost that it seemed to belong to another planet. It was September, but the Florida heat clung to her skin like a physical reminder of everything Olivia had left behind. Canada was 2,000 miles away. The hospital bill, where Lily had spent 2 months battling severe pneumonia, was just 3 collection notices away. And the maid job she'd gotten through sheer luck was exactly 42 steps ahead. Olivia counted every single one. She wore the navy blue uniform they'd given her at yesterday's whirlwind interview. The fabric was too new, too stiff, smelled of plastic and empty promises, but it was all she had now. The white apron was folded perfectly in her bag, along with the work contract guaranteeing minimum wage, a shared room in the basement for employees, and a chance to start over. If you've ever had to start over from zero, with a daughter in your arms and a broken heart, you know that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's continuing to walk when every step feels like the last your legs can take. Lily squeezed her hand. "Mommy, is that building real?" Olivia swallowed the lump in her throat. "It's real, my love. And it's going to be our new beginning." But as she pushed through the revolving glass door, Olivia had no idea that she wasn't just entering a hotel, she was entering a castle. Again, 700 years later. The lobby of the Sterling Grand Hotel was obscene in its luxury. Italian marble covered every inch of the floor, polished to reflect the Swarovski crystal chandeliers that hung from the 30-foot ceiling. White leather sofas dotted the space like expensive clouds. The air conditioning was so perfect that Olivia felt the sweat on her back dry instantly, leaving only the ghost memory of the poverty she carried glued to her skin. She didn't belong there. Every inch of her body screamed it. The guests crossing the lobby wore clothes that cost more than her annual salary. The suitcases they carried had logos that Olivia had only seen in magazines she browsed at the supermarket while Lily slept in the cart. Behind the front desk, 3 receptionists with perfect smiles attended to guests with the icy efficiency of someone who's never had to choose between food and medicine. Olivia held Lily tighter and followed the signs to the basement, where the employees entered, where people like her became invisible. The contrast was brutal. The service staircase was narrow, poorly lit, with exposed concrete walls that echoed every step like an accusation. Olivia descended 3 flights, carrying the suitcases, Lily walking beside her in a silence too heavy for a 5-year-old. In the basement, the hallway smelled of industrial disinfectant and deferred dreams. Numbered doors lined each side. Olivia found hers. Number 23. She opened it with the key they'd given her. The room was 80 square feet, 2 single beds, a tiny closet, a narrow window overlooking the underground parking lot, everything clean, everything functional, everything devoid of anything that remotely resembled a home. Lily looked around with eyes too big. "Is there a TV?" Olivia felt her heart break a little more. "No, my love, but we have a warm bed, and we're together. That's what matters." A lie. It wasn't enough. It would never be. But it was all they had. Meanwhile, 72 floors above, Ethan Sterling was finishing his third meeting of the day before 9 in the morning. The penthouse occupying the top floor of the hotel was more than a residence. It was a territory. 4,000 square feet of glass, steel, and consolidated power. The walls were floor-to-ceiling windows offering 360-degree views of Miami. The ocean sparkled to the east like a liquid promise. The city stretched in all other directions like a conquered empire. Ethan was 38 and had built that empire with his own hands. The Sterling Grand Hotel was just the crown jewel. He owned 17 luxury hotels in 11 countries. His personal fortune exceeded $1 billion. Forbes had ranked him among the 50 most influential businessmen in the world. And at that moment, watching Miami wake up through the panoramic windows, Ethan felt absolutely nothing. He was handsome in the way rich and powerful men often are. Tall, broad shoulders, angular jaw that appeared on business magazine covers, black hair combed back with expensive gel, dark eyes that never revealed more than cold calculation. He wore an Armani suit like armor, and he had built his fortune by being ruthless, focused, and completely indifferent to anything other than profit. But in recent weeks, something had changed. Ethan woke up from nightmares he couldn't fully remember, just fragments, blood, screams, the weight of a sword in his hands, and a woman screaming his name with a voice that cut through centuries. He ignored them, because ignoring things was what Ethan did best. Marco, his personal assistant, entered the room with a tablet in hand. "Mr. Sterling, the new batch of housekeepers starts today. Standard onboarding protocol. Miss Beatrice will be supervising." Ethan nodded with indifference. Great. He never paid attention to low-level employees. Why should he? They were replaceable parts in the well-oiled machine that kept his empire running. He didn't know their names, didn't know their stories, didn't care. Until that afternoon. It was shortly after noon when it happened. Ethan was coming down from the 35th floor, where he had inspected the renovation of a presidential suite. He was alone in the elevator, phone in hand, answering emails as the world slipped by. Through the glass walls, the elevator stopped on the 12th floor. The doors opened, and Olivia Hayes walked in. She didn't see him immediately. She was looking at the cleaning cart she was pushing, checking supplies. Auburn hair pulled back in a tight bun, navy blue uniform immaculate, but when she looked up and saw him standing there, alone, in a $3,000 suit, presence filling the entire elevator, she froze. "Sorry, sir. I can wait for the next one." Her voice was soft, a gentle Canadian accent around the edges, submissive. The way a hotel maid's voice should be. Ethan was going to say it didn't matter. He was going to look back at his phone. He was going to do what he always did, ignore. But then, she stepped inside. And as she passed him in the cramped space of the elevator, pushing the cart, her right shoulder brushed lightly against his arm. Accidental touch. Lasted less than a second, and Ethan felt like he'd stuck his fingers into a 1,000-volt electrical socket. A shock ripped through his arm, shot up his spine, exploded at the base of his skull. Vision blurred. For a fraction of a second, too impossible to measure. Ethan wasn't in the elevator anymore. He was in a dark place, cold, smelling of wet stone and blood. There were flames, screams, and his hands were holding something heavy and wet and hot, a sword. He blinked, snapped back. Elevator, present, Toronto, September. But his heart was pounding like he'd run miles. His hands were trembling. Olivia had turned and was looking at him with concern. "Sir, are you all right?" Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. Oval face, delicate features, honey-colored skin, huge brown eyes that held a weariness too old for her early 20s. But there was something else. Something in her eyes that made Ethan's stomach churn. He knew those eyes. Impossible. Absurd. But the feeling was there, heavy as a stone in his chest. "I know you." "I'm fine," he lied, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. The elevator continued its descent. A silence too heavy filled the space between them. Olivia kept her eyes lowered now, her hands gripping the cart tightly. But Ethan saw in his peripheral vision that she was trembling slightly, as if she had felt something too. Impossible. The doors opened on the ground floor. Olivia pushed the cart out quickly, mumbling apologies that Ethan didn't quite catch. He stood there, watching her walk away down the service corridor, her navy uniform disappearing amongst other identical uniforms. And in that moment, 72 hours disappeared in... No. 700 years disappeared, because the cleaning cart bumped against the wall as she turned the corner, and the impact caused some clean towels to fall. Olivia bent to pick them up, and as she bent, the collar of her uniform slipped slightly to the side. Ethan saw her right shoulder, only for 2 seconds. Exposed skin and the birthmark, wine-colored, irregularly shaped but unmistakable. It was maybe 2 inches long, 1 inch wide, starting just above her collarbone, running diagonally down the upper part of her shoulder, exactly the shape of a medieval sword blade, slicing flesh. At a downward angle, Ethan stopped breathing. The elevator doors started to close. He didn't move. Couldn't. He was seeing the birthmark. But he was also seeing something else. A memory that wasn't his. Couldn't be his, but it was there. Clear as a photograph burned into his retina. Darkness, flames, a castle under attack, men screaming, steel crashing against steel, and a woman in a torn blue dress, eyes wide with terror, refusing to flee, her voice shouting, "I won't leave you, I'll die with you." And then his own hands, holding a sword, bringing the blade down in a movement too fast for her to dodge. The blade biting her shoulder lightly, just enough to break the skin, tear the dress, blood blossoming red against blue, pain in her eyes, betrayal, and his own voice, hoarse with despair. "Forgive me. It's the only way." Then, pushing her through an opening in the wall, a secret passage, she screaming his name, he turning back, 20 men bursting through the door, swords raised, no chance, no fear, just a cold certainty. She was safe. That was all that mattered. Ethan blinked, snapped back. Present. Ground floor, elevator doors closed. He was alone, sweating cold, his heart trying to escape his chest. What the hell was that? Hallucination. It had to be. Stress. Overwork. Lack of sleep. But when he closed his eyes, he still saw the birthmark. And he knew, with a certainty he couldn't explain or wanted to accept, that he had seen that mark before, because he had been the one who had made it 700 years ago. And at that moment, 72 floors below, Olivia Hayes closed the door to her tiny room and leaned against the wall, trying to calm the breathing that had accelerated for no apparent reason. When she had touched that man's arm in the elevator, for a fraction of a second, she had seen something, not with her eyes, with something deeper, a castle, night, fire, and pain in her right shoulder. The same shoulder where she carried the birthmark. Since she was born, the mark that doctors said was just a genetic coincidence. But that had always seemed too strange, too specific, exactly like a blade. Olivia touched her shoulder over her uniform, feeling the shape of the mark through the fabric, and for the first time in her life, she wondered if some scars could cross lifetimes. Some connections don't need introductions. You look, recognize, and you don't know whether you should run or fall to your knees. If you've ever felt that you knew someone in the first second of looking into their eyes, you know the silent terror that this carries, because reason screams impossible, but the soul whispers. Finally, Ethan Sterling didn't sleep that night. He stood on the balcony of his penthouse, watching Toronto twinkle lights like terrestrial stars, trying to convince himself he was going insane. Hallucination, psychotic episode, any rational explanation, but at the base of his throat, a pulse beat an ancient rhythm, like war drums, and in the palms of his hands, he felt the ghost of a sword hilt, impossible, at 3 in the morning. He gave in. He turned on his computer and searched for something he had never searched for before, because he had never paid attention. Birthmarks on his own body. He had one, left side of his chest, just below his heart. It had always been there. His parents said he had been born with it. Doctors said it was a common capillary hemangioma, benign, meaningless, but Ethan had never really looked at the shape. He went to the bathroom, took off his shirt, stood in front of the mirror, looked, and the birthmark was there. It always had been, but for the first time, he really saw it. It wasn't random. It had a specific shape, maybe 3 inches long, irregular, a dark wine color. It started an inch to the left of his nipple and ran diagonally downward, exactly like a sword wound, slicing through flesh, going straight to the heart, a wound that would have killed someone instantly. Ethan touched the mark, his fingers trembling slightly, and for a second, he felt pain, not present, past. The pain of a blade entering between ribs, piercing a lung, stopping his heart. The pain of dying. He recoiled, put his shirt back on, went back to the living room, poured himself a whiskey that he didn't drink. Coincidence? It had to be. But deep down, in a place Ethan had learned to ignore over the past 20 years, building his empire, a voice whispered a truth he didn't want to hear. You died for her. Once, and you'd do it again. Meanwhile, 72 floors below, Lily slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, and Olivia lay awake, staring at the low ceiling of her small room, touching the mark on her shoulder. Repeatedly, Mom always said birthmarks were angel kisses, places where God had touched you, before sending you into the world. But that mark had never felt like a kiss. It had always felt like a wound, and for the first time, Olivia wondered if it was a scar. From what battle had her soul survived? The next morning, Ethan did something he never did. He went to the Human Resources Department. Mark was confused. Mr. Sterling, You never come to HR. Is everything all right? I want the files of all the employees hired this week. Sir, you heard me? An hour later, he was back in his penthouse with a list of names, 23 new hires, 15 housekeepers. He analyzed each file, each ID photo attached, until he found her, Olivia Maria Hayes, 29 years old, nationality, Canadian, single mother, 5-year-old daughter, no criminal record, excellent references from her previous job in Toronto. The ID photo showed an oval face, brown eyes, black hair pulled back, a serious expression, vulnerable, tired, and beautiful. In a way Ethan couldn't explain. It wasn't conventional beauty. It was something else, familiarity, like looking at a face he had loved in dreams, his entire life. He closed the file, pushed it away. This was madness, pure insanity. He didn't believe in reincarnation, soulmates, destiny, none of it. He believed in financial statements, contracts, return on investment. But that afternoon, when he was supposed to be in a meeting with Japanese investors, Ethan found himself going down to the 12th floor, where the housekeepers worked. He stood in the hallway, waiting, and then she appeared, pushing a cart, her uniform impeccable, her hair pulled back. She hadn't seen him yet. She was focused, checking the list of rooms to clean. Ethan should leave, go back to work, forget this insanity. But then she turned the corner and saw him, and stopped. For 3 eternal seconds, they just stared at each other. The hallway silent, the world slowed down, and Ethan saw recognition in her eyes, not the surprise of seeing the boss, a deeper recognition, as if she, too, was seeing through a veil. That was too thin. "Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "can I help you with something?" "Yes, no. Maybe. I want to know why you look like someone I lost a long time ago." What's your name?" he asked, even though he knew. "Olivia Hayes, sir." A soft Canadian accent, a low voice, but there was strength there, the same strength he had seen in the eyes of the woman in the blue dress, in his impossible vision. "Are you adjusting well to the job?" "Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity." The formality stung like a wound, because it wasn't supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be different, familiar, natural, like breathing, madness. Ethan nodded. "Great. Keep up the good work." He turned to leave. "Mr. Sterling?" He stopped, looked back. Olivia was biting her lower lip, indecisive. Then she spoke, her voice so low he almost didn't hear her. "Yesterday, in the elevator, did you feel anything strange?" Ethan's heart skipped a beat, like a missed drum. "I don't know what you're talking about. When I walked past you, it was like..." She paused, searching for words. "Like I knew you from somewhere." Silence hung heavy between them, like a living thing. "Coincidence," Ethan said, but his voice came out harsh. "Imagination." "Yes, sir, of course." "Sorry." She lowered her eyes, turning back to her cart, and it was at that moment that Olivia's phone rang. She answered it quickly, apologizing. "Hello?" Pause, her face paled. "What? When? I'm coming." She hung up, her hands trembling. Ethan shouldn't ask. It wasn't his problem. An employee was just a cog in the machine. But the words came out anyway. "Trouble?" "My daughter. The school called. She got sick. High fever. I need to." Olivia looked around, desperate. "I need to pick her up. But my shift doesn't end for 4 hours. And if I leave, they'll dock my pay. And I can't lose this job." Tears shimmered in her eyes, but they didn't fall. she held them back. With a strength Ethan recognized, the strength of someone who had learned that crying was a luxury. "Go," he said. Olivia blinked. "Sir, pick up your daughter. I'll talk to the manager. There won't be a deduction. But go, now." She looked at him for a second too long. Something passed between them, something unnamed. "Thank you." And then she ran. Ethan stood there, in the empty hallway, smelling of cleaning disinfectant, wondering what the hell he had just done, and why. When she had run, he had felt a violent impulse to run after her, to protect her, to make sure she and the child would be all right, as if they were his, to protect 700 years ago, and now, and always, and in that moment. 700 years disappeared. The castle became a hotel. The blue dress became a housekeeper's uniform. But the promise, that had remained. Some souls simply refused to forget. In the next 3 days, Ethan did everything to avoid Olivia. He changed meeting times, so he wouldn't cross paths with her in the hallways. He used the private elevator. He stayed away from any area where the housekeepers worked, because if it was a coincidence, it would pass. If it was imagination, it would disappear. If it was madness, he could bury it, along with all the other emotions he had learned to stifle while building his empire. But the nightmares worsened every night. The same scene, the castle under attack, flames licking ancient stones, the screams of dying men, and him in blood-stained armor, holding a sword that was too heavy, looking at the woman in the torn blue dress, her black hair loose, her eyes wide with terror and love, and an absolute refusal to abandon him. She was screaming, "I'll die with you! I won't leave you!" And then his hand bringing the blade, the horror in her eyes, blood, the secret passage pushing her, the door closing, 20 men entering, first sword slicing through his chest, pain, darkness, and always, always, he'd wake with a phantom ache on the left side of his chest, exactly where he bore a birthmark. Coincidence? It had to be coincidence. But on the fourth morning, Ethan woke at 5:27 a.m., screaming a name that wasn't his. A name in a language he didn't speak. A name that sounded like Ethan, but twisted, ancient, pronounced with an accent. His ears recognized as 14th century Spanish. And then, still trembling, he heard himself whispering another name. Isabella. Not Isabella. Isabella. How it would have sounded back in 1325. He was losing it. He was certain of it now. Coincidence can explain a birthmark, can explain a nightmare, can even explain a strange feeling when touching someone. But when you start waking up screaming names, in languages you haven't studied, in dialects that don't even exist anymore, you cross the line between strange and insane. Ethan needed answers, or at least he needed to prove to himself that all of this was hallucination, a product of stress, overwork, some undiagnosed brain tumor. So he did what billionaires do when they need answers. He bought them. He called the best neurologist in Miami and scheduled a complete MRI. He called a psychiatrist who catered to CEOs in crisis, made an appointment. He called a private investigator, requested a full background check on Olivia Hayes, everything, from birth until 3 days ago. If there was any rational connection, he would find it. And when he proved that there was nothing supernatural, nothing mystical, nothing about soulmates or reincarnation, he'd go back to being who he always was, Ethan Sterling, billionaire, businessman, a man who didn't believe in anything. He couldn't measure in spreadsheets. But meanwhile, 72 floors below, Olivia was struggling too. The dreams had started on the second night. They weren't like normal dreams. They were memories, too vivid, too real. She was in a place she'd never visited, a medieval castle with cold stone walls and lit torches. She was wearing a heavy blue dress, embroidered with gold thread, jewels around her neck, her hair pulled back in elaborate braids. She was Lady Isabella. She knew it, without knowing how. Daughter of a French duke, living in a castle, in a kingdom that no longer existed. And there was a man, captain of the guard, Ethan, not Sterling, just Ethan, a warrior with dark eyes, calloused hands, and loyalty that he hid behind rigid formality. She loved him, madly, impossibly. She was noble. He was a commoner. But love didn't respect social classes. Not in 1325, not now. And then the attack. Night, fire, men invading, Ethan fighting, refusing to flee, and she refusing to leave him until he did the unthinkable. He hurt her to save her, pushed her through the passage, and stayed behind, and died. Olivia woke from these memories, with real pain in her right shoulder, physical pain, as if a blade had just cut her skin. She touched the mark and felt it burn. This wasn't possible. Dreams didn't cause physical pain. Memories couldn't be from lives you'd never lived. But then why did she know, without a doubt, that castle had been located in the region? That is now Aragon, Spain. Why could she remember the smell of wet stone and torch smoke? Why? When she closed her eyes, did she perfectly see Ethan's face, illuminated by flames, covered in blood, looking at her for the last time? Before the door closed, Olivia didn't tell anyone. Who would believe her? A single immigrant mother working as a maid, saying she had memories of a past life. As a French noblewoman in the 14th century, they'd think she was crazy. Or worse, they'd send a social worker to investigate if she was mentally fit, to take care of Lily. So she kept it all inside and tried to work. And tried not to think about Ethan Sterling, and failed miserably. Because on Thursday morning, while cleaning a suite on the 22nd floor, Olivia found a history book of medieval Spain that some guest had left behind. Curiosity made her open it, and on page 143, she found a paragraph about an attack on a castle in Aragon in 1325. Her hands trembled, holding the book. According to historical records, enemy forces attacked Montfort Castle on the night of March 15th, 1325. Most of the garrison was killed, but Lady Isabella de Montfort, daughter of the Duke, survived, thanks to the sacrifice of Ethan de la Vega, captain of the guard, who gave his life defending a secret passage. That allowed her escape. Olivia dropped the book. It hit the floor with a dull thud that seemed to echo through the centuries. It was real. It had happened. Ethan de la Vega, Lady Isabella de Montfort. 1325. How could it be coincidence? How? Have you ever discovered something that shouldn't be possible, but is there, in black and white, proving that everything you thought you knew about reality was wrong? It's like falling, with no ground beneath you. It's like breathing, with no air. It's like dying while still alive. Olivia picked up the book. With trembling hands, read the paragraph again and again and again. And then she saw the footnote, a reference to a historical document archived at the History Museum of Miami, which had a collection of medieval Spanish records, original documents from the 14th century. She had to see it, had to know. She needed more proof, or needed to prove to herself that she was delusional. But the museum? The entrance fee was $30. She earned $8.50 an hour. She had bills to pay. Lily needed new shoes. She couldn't spend money on something so absurd. But how could she ignore it? How could she pretend she hadn't seen it that afternoon during her lunch break? Olivia committed an act of rebellion she'd never committed before. She used 20 extra minutes of her break, went up from the basement, crossed the luxurious lobby where she didn't belong, and went to the reception desk. "Excuse me," she said, to the receptionist, with the perfect smile and suit, more expensive than a month of her salary. The Sterling Grand Hotel. Was it built on top of an old building, right? The receptionist blinked, surprised. Yes. The hotel was built in 2010, but the land contained ruins of a 19th century Spanish fortress which had been erected on the foundations of an even older structure. Why do you ask? Is there any historical archive? Something about the original construction? The receptionist narrowed her eyes, finally noticing Olivia's uniform. "You're an employee?" "Yes." "Maid." Olivia swallowed. "I was curious. There is a small museum in the basement, next to the maintenance room. But it's restricted to authorized researchers." "Of course." "Thank you." Olivia turned to leave, but the receptionist called her back. "Actually, Mrs. Beatrice, the cleaning supervisor, has a key. She sometimes takes groups of new employees down here for a peek. Hotel history, you know, that sort of thing. Maybe she could take you sometime." Olivia mumbled a thank you and hurried back to the basement. Her heart was pounding a mile a minute. There was an archive, here, in the hotel itself, about the old buildings that used to occupy this very land. Maybe, just maybe, it held answers. Or maybe it would prove she was completely losing her mind. Only one way to find out. What would you do if you discovered your dreams might actually be memories? That the déjà vu you felt was actual, real recognition? That some of the people you just met could be souls you'd loved for centuries? Would you investigate, or would you run? Run as fast as your legs could carry you? That same afternoon, in moments separated but connected by invisible threads of destiny. 2 private investigators delivered 2 reports. The first went to Ethan, a 57-page document, all about Olivia Hayes, born in Vancouver. Parents passed away in a car accident when she was 17, raised by her grandmother. Married at 22 to a guy who left her pregnant. Daughter born premature, worked 3 jobs simultaneously to pay for treatment when her kid developed severe pneumonia. Lost her apartment when she couldn't make rent. Crossed the border legally with a work visa. Clean record, impeccable references, no connection to the Sterling family, no reason to be in Canada except desperation and hope. Ethan read it all and found nothing. No rational explanation for what he felt. She was a complete stranger. There was no way they could have met before. It was impossible. And yet, looking at Olivia's photo attached to the report, a driver's license picture with a serious expression and tired eyes, Ethan felt the same thing he'd felt in the elevator, recognition, like he was staring at half of his soul that had been torn away and lost so long ago he didn't even remember what it was like to be whole. He put the report away, but couldn't bring himself to get rid of the photo. The second investigator delivered a report to Miss Jenkins, the head of housekeeping. She'd requested a routine background check on all new hires, standard procedure. And the report on Olivia was normal, hard-working single mum, no problems, approved. But when Olivia went to talk to Ms. Jenkins about the hotel's historical archive, she found a woman in her 60s of Irish descent. With sharp eyes and a soft heart, she hid behind a rigid efficiency. "You want to see the historical archive?" "Why? Olivia hesitated. How could she explain? "I saw something in a book about a castle that was in Ireland in 1325, and there were people with names similar to what? To mine. And Mr. Sterling's." Silence. Miss Jenkins studied her, then nodded. "Come with me." They went down 2 levels beyond the employee basement, to the maintenance area, and then to a locked door at the end of a dimly lit hallway. Miss Jenkins opened it with a heavy key. Inside, a small room, walls lined with shelves, archive boxes, old documents in protective glass cases. When they built this hotel, Miss Jenkins explained, they found the foundations of 3 previous buildings. The oldest dated back to the early 1300s, an Irish stronghold that was later destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed again. This land has a lot of blood on it, a lot of history. Olivia stepped inside. The air smelled like old paper and buried secrets. Ms. Jenkins turned on dim lights and then pointed to a display case in the corner. This was found during an excavation, 15 feet below ground. Olivia approached and stopped breathing. Inside the display case, on black velvet, was a medallion, old silver, blackened with age, round, maybe 2 inches in diameter, and on the surface, engraved in worn but still visible letters, an inscription in archaic Latin. Olivia didn't know Latin, but there was a small plaque next to it with a translation. Ethan plus Olivia, MCCCCX6V, 1325. Olivia touched the glass with trembling fingers. This medallion, is it real? Authenticated by 3 different labs, Ms. Jenkins said softly. Dates to the early 14th century. It was found in a chamber that was probably part of a watchtower, along with remains of armor and weapons. Archaeologists say it was likely a guard's quarters. And when was it opened? The case. She blinked, returned, present, archive room, Canada, 2025. But her heart was in 1325, and her ghost hands held that medallion, attached to a chain she wore hidden beneath a blue dress. A gift from Ethan, the only physical proof of a love they could never confess publicly. How could this be here? Miss Jenkins watched her intently. "Do you believe in reincarnation?" Olivia looked at her. "I don't know what I believe anymore. My grandmother used to say," Miss Jenkins said quietly, "that some souls make promises so strong that even death can't break them, and that certain people are born with marks, not just on their bodies, but on their souls, marks that span time." Olivia touched her shoulder instinctively. "The birthmark. My grandmother said that birthmarks in strange places, specific shapes, aren't accidents. They're memories that the body refuses to forget. But that's impossible. Impossible is just a word we use for things we don't understand yet." Ms. Jenkins opened the display case with a second key, took out the medallion with white cotton gloves, held it in the light. "Do you want to hold it? Can I?" "Technically, no, but there are rules. And then there are truths bigger than rules." Miss Jenkins placed the medallion in Olivia's palm, and the world exploded in white light. A vision, not a dream, a vision, clear, real, more real than the room around her. She was in a small room, a tower, night, candles burning, and Ethan was there, not in a suit, leather armor, a sword on his belt, hair longer, face younger, but the eyes identical. Those same eyes, and he was placing the medallion around her neck, calloused fingers brushing her skin, a husky voice whispering, "As long as I live, you will be protected. And if I die, this medallion will prove that I loved you more than honor, more than duty, more than my own life." She was crying. It wasn't allowed, noble and commoner, impossible, but love didn't ask permission. And then she promised, "I will find you. In whatever life comes next, I will recognize you, and we will be together, this time forever." Olivia snapped back to the present with a scream caught in her throat. She dropped the medallion. Ms. Jenkins caught it quickly before it hit the floor. "You saw something. It wasn't a question." Olivia was trembling violently. "I saw everything. I saw her. I was her. And Ethan, he was." She covered her mouth. "He's here. Now, Mr. Sterling. He was the captain of the guard, and I was Lady Olivia. And he died for me, and I swore I would find him." Tears streamed down her face now. She couldn't stop. 700 years of pain compressed into a present body. Grief that she had carried through lifetimes, without knowing why. Olivia placed the locket back in the display case. She closed it carefully. Then, she held Lily's shoulders. "Some things can't be proven, only felt. Do you feel that this is true?" "I do. God help me. I do." "Then, what are you going to do?" "I don't know." Olivia wiped the tears with trembling hands. "He's a billionaire. I'm a housekeeper. He barely knows my name. How can I just walk up and tell him we were lovers 700 years ago?" "Maybe. You don't need to say anything. Maybe. He already feels the same." "No. He's avoiding me. He changed all his schedules. He hasn't sought me out since that day. He must think I'm crazy. Or," Lily suggested softly, "he's just as afraid of the truth as you are." And at that moment, 2 floors above, Ethan Sterling was leaving a meeting with a neurologist. Tests completely normal, no tumor, no anomalies, perfectly healthy brain. Psychiatrist scheduled for the following week. But Ethan already knew what he'd say. Stress, overwork, prescription for antidepressants, suggestion for a vacation. None of them would believe him if he told them the truth. That he woke up every night, dying. That he felt the phantom pain of a sword piercing his chest. That he knew a woman he'd never met before, but recognized on a cellular level. Nobody would believe him. So, when Mark brought a tablet showing a notification from the hotel security system, Ethan almost ignored it. But then, he saw the name. Olivia Hayes. Access to the historical archive room. Accompanied by Lily Hernandez. 22 minutes. Why was a housekeeper visiting the historical archive? Curious. Ethan checked the access logs and discovered that the room was rarely accessed. The last time had been 6 months ago, a university researcher studying medieval architecture. Before that, 3 years. Why had Olivia gone there? Ethan should let it go. It wasn't important, but instead, he found himself descending to the basement, to the maintenance corridor, to the locked door. He didn't have a key, but he owned the hotel. He called security, ordered them to open it. 3 minutes later, he was inside. A small room, ancient documents, walls of compressed history, the smell of stagnant time. And then, He saw the display case in the corner. He approached like a man walking to his own execution and looked inside. A silver locket, inscribed with two names that made his world stop spinning. Ethan plus Olivia, MCCCXXV. He read the explanatory plaque. Found during an excavation, dated to the early 14th century. Found in a guard barracks, along with the armor and weapons of a guard captain who died defending the castle. Ethan touched the glass, fingers finding cold silver through the transparent barrier, and then he saw it. Not gradual, instantaneous, complete, total. He was in a room, a tower, placing the locket around Olivia's neck, her hair loose, a cascade of black silk, blue dress, brown eyes shining in the candlelight, and him promising to protect her, always, as long as blood ran in his veins, and her promising to find him, in any life, in any form. And then, weeks of stolen happiness, secret meetings, hidden touches, a love they couldn't confess, until the night of the attack, when everything he promised was tested, and he chose her life over his own, as he always would, in any time, in any life. Ethan opened his eyes. Present. Canada, 2025. But the truth was there, solid as the silver in the display case. He had died for her, 700 years ago, and somehow, impossible but undeniable, they had both returned. And she was here, now, 72 floors below, living in a tiny room, working for minimum wage, carrying a mark that he had made, alone, vulnerable. And he had wasted 5 days avoiding her because he was afraid of the truth. Ethan left the room. He went up to the elevator, his heart pounding, his mind racing. For the first time in 20 years, he didn't know what to do, how to approach her, what to say, how to explain the unexplainable. But maybe he didn't need to explain. Maybe she already knew. After all, she had gone to the archive too. She had seen the locket. She had felt the same. And if she had felt, they were connected. Through centuries, through death, through a promise that neither of them consciously remembered making, but that their souls had guarded with the care of a sacred relic. Ethan needed to see her. He needed to talk to her. He needed to know if he was going crazy alone, or if she was also diving into a shared insanity that was the only thing that made sense in a world that had been turned upside down. But when he arrived on the 12th floor, where the housekeepers worked, Olivia wasn't there. He asked another employee, "Where's Olivia? She left early. Her daughter is still sick." Ethan closed his eyes. Of course, Lily, the child, who was more important than any 700-year-old mystery, as it always should be. He returned to the penthouse, and for the first time since he had bought the hotel 10 years ago, he found the space too large, too empty, too cold. He stood on the balcony, watching Vancouver blink its lights, and he wondered if souls could really find each other through lifetimes, if promises could really survive death, if love could really be strong enough to make two people cross 7 centuries, change form, be reborn, just to have another chance. A chance to get right what had gone wrong. A chance to be together, this time, forever. And at that moment, 72 floors below, Olivia held Lily in her sleep. The fever had broken. The medicine had worked. The child was fine. But Olivia couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, touching the mark on her shoulder, thinking about the locket, the visions, the impossibility that stubbornly insisted on being true, and wondering if Ethan Sterling felt the same, if he was also awake, if he had also seen the locket, if he also carried the weight of 700 years without knowing why, and what would happen when they met again. Because they would meet. It was inevitable. Some souls simply can't stay apart, no matter how hard they try, no matter how many lives they need to cross. In the end, they always find each other, as if reality itself conspired to unite them. 3 days passed in charged silence. Ethan knew where Olivia was. He could track her through the employee identification system. He could appear on the 12th floor at any moment. But he didn't, because when they finally met, when they finally spoke, nothing would be the same. There would be no turning back. There would be no pretending that all of this was normal. And Ethan Sterling had spent his entire life controlling narratives, controlling outcomes. But that was beyond any control. Olivia was working on autopilot, cleaning rooms, changing sheets, vacuuming, and pretending she wasn't waiting to turn every corner and find him. Pretending her heart didn't leap every time the elevator opened. Pretending she hadn't spent 700 years searching for him. Because she had. Even without knowing it. Every relationship that had failed. Every man she had looked at and felt empty. Every time she had wondered why no one seemed right. Because none of them were Ethan. And her soul knew. Even when her mind couldn't remember. Some people are going to pause here. They're going to close the video. Because what comes next defies everything science teaches, everything religion preaches, everything reality should allow. But if you've ever felt like you knew someone without meeting them, if you've ever had an inexplicable certainty about something impossible, if you've ever loved someone in a way that transcends reason, you'll understand. You'll know that there are things between heaven and earth that neither philosophy nor science can explain. Only the heart recognizes, and the soul remembers. On Wednesday afternoon, 10 days after Olivia had entered that hotel for the first time, Destiny finally got tired of waiting. The hotel was hosting a charity event, a gala to raise funds for a children's hospital. The ballroom on the 12th floor transformed into a paradise of crystal and light. 500 guests in formal attire, live music, champagne flowing, and all the hotel staff mobilized to ensure everything ran perfectly, including the housekeepers, who were instructed to wear impeccable uniforms and help serve during the event. Olivia didn't want to go. She tried to swap shifts, made up excuses. But Mrs. Beatrice looked at her with those eyes that saw too much and said softly, "You can't run forever. Neither can he. Sometimes destiny needs a push." So there she was. Navy blue uniform pressed until it was perfect, hair tied in an elegant bun, immaculate white apron, carrying a tray of champagne flutes among people wearing jewelry that cost more than everything she owned combined, and trying not to look for him with her eyes. Ethan was in the center of the room, Armani black tuxedo, hair perfectly styled, talking to millionaire donors, a fixed political smile on his face, but his mind was somewhere else. Another time, another life. He had to talk to her. He knew that. But what to say? How to start a conversation that defied sanity? "Hey, Olivia, So, funny you should mention it, but I think we died together 700 years ago. Wanna grab coffee? Insane. But then Marco appeared at his side, whispering, "Sir, we need a photo of you with the hospital representative for publicity, near the stage." Ethan nodded, started to cross the room, and that's when he saw her. Olivia was 15 feet away, her back to him, serving champagne to a group of women in expensive dresses. Perfect posture, professional, invisible, the way employees were trained to be, but to Ethan, she was the only person visible in the entire room. He approached without thinking, like a magnet drawn to the opposite pole, like the moon pulled by the tide, like a soul recognizing its other half through a crowd of strangers. Olivia. She froze. The tray trembled slightly in her hands, turned slowly, and when their eyes met, the rest of the room disappeared. The music faded. Conversations turned into distant white noise. There was only them. And 700 years of distance that suddenly seemed like nothing. "Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice coming out lower than intended. "Can I help you?" The formality was a lie. They both knew it, but it was safer than the truth. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it. There were no words. How to condense centuries into a sentence, how to explain a recognition that transcended logic. "We need to talk." "Sir, I'm working." "I know. Later. Please." Olivia bit her lip, looked around. Other employees watching, guests noticing, the boss talking to the maid. It wasn't appropriate. It wasn't allowed. But then Beatrice appeared out of nowhere, took the tray from Olivia's hands gently. "I'll take over from here. Go. You have a 15-minute break anyway." Olivia looked at her. Beatrice nodded. A push. Ethan guided Olivia through a side door, service corridor, away from the crowd, away from prying eyes, to a small private terrace that few knew existed. 12th floor. View of Miami illuminated. Warm night air against their skin. They stood there, feet apart. But it could have been miles. Or centuries. Same result. "You saw the medallion," Ethan said. It wasn't a question. "I did. And I don't know what to think." Olivia hugged herself. "It shouldn't be possible. But it's there. Our names, the date, everything. I've had the same nightmares as you." "How do you know I had nightmares?" "Because I also woke up screaming. Because I feel pain here." He touched his chest. "Where I shouldn't feel anything. Because every time I close my eyes, I see a castle in flames and a woman in a blue dress and 20 men with swords." Olivia was trembling now. "And I see you, Ethan, not Sterling, just Ethan, captain of the guard, and you hurt me to save me, and then you die, and I can't reach you, and I've been carrying this grief for my entire life without knowing where it comes from." Tears streamed down her face. Ethan took a step forward. Instinct stronger than reason. "May I?" he asked, his hand outstretched. She understood without needing to ask what. She nodded. Ethan touched her right shoulder. Over the uniform. Felt the mark through the fabric. And Olivia gasped, because she felt it too. A shock, a connection, a memory. "Can I see?" he whispered. Olivia hesitated. Then, with trembling hands, she pulled the collar of her uniform aside. exposing her shoulder. And the mark. Ethan looked at it, really looked at it. The shape of a blade. Exact. Precise. Impossible to be a coincidence. "I'm the one who did that," he said, his voice breaking. 700 years ago, to push you through the passage, because you refused to leave me. And it was the only way to save you." "I know," Olivia whispered. "I remember. You remember. When I touched the medallion, I saw everything. The tower, the night." "You giving me the medallion, promising to protect me, and then the attack, and you hurting me, and pushing me, and the door closing, and me screaming your name, and you dying." She was sobbing now, years of pain that had no explanation finally making sense. Ethan didn't think. He just pulled her into an embrace, and Olivia melted against him, as if her body remembered the fit, as if her muscles had a memory of being held exactly like this, 700 years ago, and in all the lives between then and now, even if they had never met. "I'm so sorry," Ethan whispered against her hair, "for hurting you, for dying, for leaving you alone. You saved me, and I found you, just like I promised." And there they stood, lost in the moment. Neither of them knew how long it lasted. Seconds, minutes, it could have been hours. Time held no meaning for souls that had journeyed through centuries. But then Olivia stepped back, wiped away her tears, and looked at him. "This is insane. You know this is insane, right?" "Completely," Ethan agreed. "Reincarnation doesn't exist. Soulmates don't exist. Memories of past lives don't exist. But here we are." Silence hung heavy in the air, weighted down by all that remained unsaid. "What do we do now?" Olivia finally asked. Ethan was at a loss. For the first time in his adult life, he had no answer, no plan, no strategy. But then he remembered. There was more. Aunt Lily had mentioned it. Complete archives, historical documents. He needed to know more. Needed more proof. Or at least, proof that this was all just a shared delusion. "Come with me," he said. "Where?" "There's something I need to show you. Ethan, I need to get back to work. 10 minutes. Please." Olivia looked at him and saw determination and fear and a need so profound it mirrored her own. She nodded slowly. They took Ethan's private elevator, descending below the employee levels, all the way down to a storage area that very few people even knew existed. Ethan punched in a master code and opened a heavy door. Inside was a room bigger than the historical archive. The walls were lined with carefully preserved documents. Excavated artifacts were displayed in glass cases. History condensed into a single, enclosed space. "When we bought this land back in 2008, Ethan explained as he flicked on the lights, archaeologists found 3 layers of construction. The deepest layer dated back to 1300, a Spanish fortress. Most of it was destroyed, but some artifacts were preserved. I kept everything here. I never knew why, until now." He guided Olivia to a large display case in the back. Inside, resting on dark velvet, was a suit of armor, a steel breastplate, metal sleeves. The engravings were worn, but still visible, and in the center of the breastplate, a hole where a blade had pierced it through. "This armor," Ethan said, his voice raspy, "belonged to the captain of the guard who died defending the castle. Records say he fought alone against 20 men. He killed 13 before he fell. None of the attackers survived to reach the secret passage where Lady Isabella had fled. Olivia touched the glass, staring at the armor stained with centuries of oxidized blood. 700 years old, but still visible. "There's more," Ethan continued, moving to a smaller display case beside it. Paintings, replicas of medieval portraits found in the ruins, and at the first painting. Olivia stopped breathing. It was a portrait of a man, in the captain's armor, sword at his side. Dark hair, dark eyes, a sharply angled jaw, a face that was undeniably, impossibly, identical to Ethan Sterling. Ethan de la Vega, the plaque beneath it read. Captain of the Royal Guard, 1325. Ethan was staring too, and for the first time, he saw himself, not in the present, but in the past. A version of himself that had existed 700 years ago. But it was him, undeniably. And at the second painting, Olivia saw herself. A woman in a blue dress, her dark hair styled in elaborate braids, jewelry around her neck, enormous brown eyes, an oval face, delicate features. But more than that, it was her, every curve, every detail, as if an artist had painted Olivia Hayes in medieval clothing, and on her right shoulder, visible just above the neckline of the dress, a small but unmistakable mark, a blade-shaped scar. Lady Isabella de Montfort, the plaque read, daughter of Duke Henry de Montfort, 1325. "There's no way," Olivia whispered. "There's no way two strangers in 2025 could be identical to two people who lived in 1325. The chances are impossible, infinitesimal. Unless they're not strangers," Ethan interrupted, "unless they're the same souls, the same spirits, just different bodies, different lives, but the identical essence." Olivia turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. "Do you really believe that? A rational billionaire who built an empire on logic and numbers and contracts really believes that souls can reincarnate?" Ethan looked from the portraits back to Olivia, and for the first time in 20 years, Ethan Sterling stopped trying to control the narrative, stopped searching for a rational explanation, and simply accepted the truth that his soul already knew. "I believe in you, and I believe in what I feel when I'm near you. And I believe that there are things that science can't explain, but that the heart knows to be true. So, yes, I believe." Olivia covered her face with her hands, her body shaking with sobs that had waited 700 years to be released. Ethan pulled her into another embrace, and this time he held her tightly, just as he'd wanted to when he was dying on the floor of that castle, as he'd longed to hold her one last time before everything faded to black. "I looked for you," Olivia whispered against his chest. "In every relationship, in every man, and no one was ever you. And I didn't understand why. But now I do. Because they weren't you. And the soul can't be fooled. Me too," Ethan confessed, his voice breaking. "I built an empire. I had everything, money, power, success. But I always felt like something was missing, something essential. And now I know what it was. It was you. It was always you." And there they stood, embraced, between display cases filled with proof of lives they had lived, deaths they had died, promises they had made. How long? Olivia asked. How long have we been searching? 700 years, maybe more. Maybe this isn't the first time we've reincarnated. Maybe we've been doing this for millennia. Being born, living, dying, being born again. Searching, waiting. Until now. Until now. Ethan stepped back, cupped her face in his hands, looked into those brown eyes he'd known for centuries, and asked something he'd wanted to ask since 1325. Do you forgive me for hurting you, for choosing your life over mine? Olivia smiled through her tears. There's nothing to forgive. You saved me. You gave me the life that you didn't have, and I survived, and I looked for you, and I found you, just like I promised. And this time we stay together, no matter what, no matter who tries to tear us apart, no matter that you're a billionaire and I'm a hotel maid, no matter what the world says is impossible. Because it's already been impossible before, and we loved each other anyway. Ethan kissed her forehead, gently, reverently, like kissing a sacred relic, because that's what she was. A miracle, living proof that love could transcend death, that promises could survive centuries, that souls could truly find their way back to each other through time. But then, reality came knocking, literally. Someone was knocking on the storage room door. Marco's voice called out, "Mr. Sterling, the event is ending. They need you for the closing speech." Ethan closed his eyes. Damn. He'd completely forgotten obligation, responsibility, the life she'd painstakingly built. But when she opened her eyes again, Ethan was smiling, small, sad, but genuine. Go. You need to go. I'm just an employee. You're the owner. The rules are different for us. No. Ethan held her hand tightly. Not anymore. I won't leave you again. Not in this life. Ethan, be realistic. Look at me. Look at you. I clean rooms. You own 17 hotels. I live in a tiny apartment. You live in a penthouse. The world will never accept it. To hell with the world, Mon, he retorted. I spent 700 years without you. I won't spend another day. He was serious. Olivia saw it in his eyes. Absolute determination. The kind that built empires. The kind that would face 20 men alone and take down 13 before falling. But the knock on the door grew more insistent. Sir, everyone's waiting. Ethan cursed under his breath. He looked at Olivia. One last time. Afterward? Can we talk afterward? Promise you won't disappear. I promise. He kissed her hand. Quick. Intense. And then forced himself to leave. The door closed behind him, and Olivia was alone again, surrounded by echoes of a past life. She looked at the portraits one more time. Ethan Sterling, the tycoon, and Lady Olivia Hayes, the socialite, separated by death, reunited by destiny. 700 years later, she touched her right shoulder, feeling the mark through her uniform. And for the first time since being born with that strange mark, Olivia understood why. It wasn't a flaw. It wasn't random. It was a memory, a promise. It was proof that love could be literally carved into flesh and still survive across centuries. If you haven't felt chills yet, if you haven't had to pause to process the impossibility of it all, then maybe you've never loved someone in a way that transcends reason. But if you have, if you recognize that pain, impossible to explain but impossible to ignore, Then you know. Some connections don't need logic. They just need the courage to accept that there's more between heaven and earth than any science can explain. Olivia returned to the ballroom. The event was ending. Ethan was on stage, giving a speech. Perfect smile, steady voice. But as he looked out at the crowd, his eyes searched and found her. In the back, navy blue uniform, holding an empty tray. And for a fraction of a second, the world slowed down. The ballroom full of 500 people disappeared, and there was only them, looking, recognizing, remembering. And when Ethan spoke the last line of his speech, he wasn't talking to the crowd, he was talking to her. Some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth dying for. And some things are worth living 700 years to have a second chance. Applause exploded, but Olivia barely heard it because she had seen the truth in his eyes. A promise. This time, there would be no separation. This time, they would face the world together. This time, love would triumph. It had to triumph. Because they had waited 700 years, and souls that wait that long don't give up easily. That night, after the last guest had left, after the ballroom was empty and silent, Ethan went down to the basement. He knocked on door number 23. Olivia opened it. Still in her uniform, Lily was sleeping in the bed behind her. "We can't talk here," she whispered. "It'll wake her up. Then come to my penthouse, now." "Ethan, I can't just... Please," he pleaded, his voice breaking. "I need answers. I need to understand. I need to know I'm not going crazy alone." Olivia looked back, Lily sleeping peacefully. She looked forward, Ethan desperate, torn. But then Aunt Beatrice appeared in the hallway, as if she'd been waiting. "I'll stay with her. Go. Some conversations can't wait." Olivia agreed. Followed Ethan to the private elevator. They rode up in silence. 72 floors. To the penthouse. The doors opened to another world. 4,000 square feet. Glass and steel. A 360-degree view. Miami twinkling lights like terrestrial stars. Olivia entered, feeling out of place. Poor, small, like a maid entering a palace. Like Lady Olivia Hayes entering a guard's barracks for the first time, centuries ago. Ethan poured whiskey for both of them. Olivia didn't drink. But tonight, she accepted. Needed something to ground the reality that had turned to quicksand. They stood on the balcony, looking at the city, not speaking. Because words weren't enough. Until Ethan broke the silence. "I read everything about you. Private investigator, full file, your life from birth." Olivia froze. "That's invasive. Wrong." "I know, but I needed to know if there was some rational connection, some way we could have known each other before. But there isn't. You were born in Canada. I in Italy. We've never been in the same country until 3 weeks ago. Never crossed paths. Never. And yet we know each other," Olivia finished. "On a level that transcends logic." "Exactly." Silence again. Then Olivia spoke. "What do we do now? How do we live with this knowledge? How do I wake up tomorrow and clean rooms knowing I was once a noblewoman? How do you manage an empire knowing you were once a commoner? How do we move forward?" Ethan turned to her. "We don't. Not forward. We moved together. Olivia shook her head. You don't understand. There's protocol, rules. The boss can't date the employee. I'll get fired, or worse. They'll say I used seduction to manipulate you. They'll destroy my reputation. And you? You'll lose credibility. Investors will question your judgment. The media will have a field day. Let them talk. Easy for you to say. You have $1 billion to fall back on. I have a 5-year-old daughter and $230 in the bank. Then quit your job. I'll support you. Olivia recoiled as if she'd been slapped. You think it's about money? That I'm here because I want your money? No, that's not what I meant, but that's what you said. She was trembling, from anger or pain or both. I work. I've always worked. 3 jobs simultaneously to provide for my daughter. I lost everything, but I never begged. And I won't start now. Not even for you. Not even for my 700-year-old soulmate. Olivia, no. She was crying now. You don't understand. You were born with privilege. You built an empire, yes, but you had a base, education, connections, opportunities. I had nothing, and yet I survived. And I won't trade my independence. Not for you. Ethan was silent, processing, and then he understood. It wasn't about money. It was about pride, dignity. The only things Olivia had that no one could take away. You're right. I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. But I need you to understand. I don't care about protocol or rules or what anyone thinks. I spent 700 years without you, and now that I've found you, I won't let anything separate us. Nothing. Not society. Not class. Not pride. Nothing. Then what do you suggest? I don't know. For the first time in my life, I have no plan. But I know one thing. You're more important than any empire, any reputation, anything. And I'm going to prove it. I don't know how yet, but I will. Olivia looked at him, and she saw truth. She saw the same Ethan who had faced 20 guys alone, who had chosen death over letting her be unprotected, who had loved when love was forbidden. He was still there, beneath the $3,000 suit, beneath the billions of dollars, beneath 20 years of empire building. He was still there, the warrior, the protector, the man who loved without reservation. And Olivia broke. She fell to her knees right there on the balcony. And she cried. 700 years of pain spilling out at once, grief she had carried without knowing why, loneliness she had felt even when surrounded by people, an emptiness that no relationship had filled. Because none of them were him. Ethan knelt beside her, held her while she cried, and cried too, for the first time since he was 12 years old, and vowed to never show weakness again. He cried, because some emotions are too big to contain, and some reunions are too powerful to process without breaking first. They stayed like that, kneeling on the balcony, Miami shimmering below, a starry sky above, and between them, 700 years of waiting finally ending, when the tears dried and their breathing calmed. They sat, backs against the glass wall, shoulders touching. And that's when Olivia noticed. She looked at the sky, at the position of the stars, at a specific constellation. Orion, she whispered, the Hunter's constellation. Ethan looked up. Yeah, why? I know where we are. In the sky. I shouldn't know this. I've never studied astronomy, but I know. And I know that in 1325, on the night you died, Orion was in exactly this position in the sky. I saw it through the window of the secret passage while you fought. And I promised that every time I saw Orion, I'd remember you and think of you until we met again. And here we are, under the same stars, 700 years later. Olivia rested her head on his shoulder, and Ethan kissed the top of her head, softly, reverently, like a promise renewed, like an oath retaken, this time forever. The next morning, Ethan made a decision. He called an emergency meeting, called Human Resources, tried to create a promotion for Olivia, a way for her to work without being subordinate, without protocol being broken. But Olivia refused. She wouldn't accept charity, not even from her 700-year-old soulmate. She went straight to the board meeting, walked in uninvited, a room full of men in suits, looking at her with disdain. "I won't accept a fake promotion," she said, her voice firm. "You need to choose. Now, in front of everyone, do you want me? The real me, a maid, a single mother, an immigrant? Do you want me like this, or do you want an edited version that fits into your world?" Absolute silence, live scandal. Ethan looked at her, then at the board, and made his decision. "Gentlemen, this meeting is adjourned. Leave." One by one, they left, shocked, judging. When the last one left, Ethan crossed the room, stood in front of her. "You're right. I tried to control the narrative, but you're not a project. And what we feel doesn't fit into a corporate strategy. So what do? I choose you, as I am, as you are, and to hell with the rest. Easy to say, difficult to live, but I'll try. For the first time, I'm just going to live the truth, no matter the cost." And what is the truth? That I love you, not just in this life, in all lives, and I won't hide it anymore. Olivia was crying, tears of relief. "I love you too, since 1325, and in all lives, always." Ethan kissed her forehead, then her cheek, then her lips, the first kiss in 700 years. And it was worth every second of waiting. The door burst open. Liam, stunned. "The media is calling. Someone leaked it. They want a statement." Ethan didn't let go of Olivia, then give them a statement. Ethan Sterling is in a relationship with Olivia Hayes, and anyone who has a problem can sell their stock. "Sir, this will cause a scandal." "Great, let it. This story shouldn't exist, but here it is. Against all odds, defying all logic, proving that some things are stronger than death." In the following weeks, the media had a field day. Billionaire and Maid, corporate scandal, stocks falling 8%. Ethan didn't care. For the first time, numbers meant nothing compared to the woman in his arms. He moved Olivia and Lily to a separate apartment, 3 bedrooms, ocean view, where Lily had her own room and Olivia had the dignity of independence. At night, they would sit on the balcony, looking at the stars, talking about lives lived and a life being built. A month after the initial scandal, an investigative journalist published an article, not about the scandal, about the story. She had discovered historical records, documents from 1325 archived in a museum in Barcelona. And what she found made the world stop. A death certificate. Ethan de la Vega, captain of the Royal Guard, died on March 15th, 1325, defending Montfort Castle. Cause of death, sword wound to the chest, left side, straight to the heart, and attached to the document, a letter, written 3 months later, by Lady Isabella de Montfort, dictated to a scribe because her hands trembled too much to hold a pen. "I will find you again, in any life to come, I will recognize your eyes, your soul, and we will love again, this time without wars, without classes, without barriers, just us, as it always should have been. Wait for me, because I will search for you, through centuries if necessary. And when I find you, I will never let you go. The article included a photo of the document, authenticated by 3 independent laboratories, dated June of 1325, with no possibility of fraud. And then the journalist had gone deeper, compared the handwriting of the letter with modern letters from Olivia. Obviously, they weren't identical. 700 years of difference. But there were patterns, specific ways of curving letters, mannerisms impossible to falsify. And then came the conclusion of the article, which shocked the scientific community and inspired millions of people around the world. Reincarnation may not be scientifically provable, but there are cases where coincidence simply isn't explanation enough. Ethan Sterling and Olivia Hayes are one of those cases. And perhaps, just perhaps, love is a force more powerful than science can measure, a force that transcends death, crosses centuries, and always, always finds its way back. The article went viral, 500 million views in a week, a Netflix documentary, interviews on all the major shows. And suddenly, Ethan and Olivia were no longer a scandal. They were a phenomenon. Living proof that soulmates could be real. Investors returned. Stocks rose 22%. The Sterling Grand Hotel. It became a pilgrimage site for couples who believed in eternal love. And Ethan learned that sometimes losing control was the best decision he could make. 3 months after Olivia first walked into the hotel, Ethan brought her back to the archive room, where it had all started, where the locket was, where the portraits watched them. He knelt. Right there, among the display cases filled with the past, and he held out a small velvet box. Olivia covered her mouth. Oh, my goodness. 700 years ago, Ethan said, his voice trembling. I died before I could give you this. I died before I could officially ask you. I died before we could have the life we deserved. But this time, he took a deep breath. This time, I'm going to do it right. Olivia Hayes, will you marry me? In this life, and in every life to come. Olivia was crying, laughing, kneeling beside him. Yes, 1,000 times yes, in any life, in any form, always you. He slid the ring onto her finger, silver, simple, with an inscription inside. Ethan plus Olivia, always. Just like the locket from 700 years ago, like a promise that had never been broken, just delayed. And when they kissed, there, among the ghosts of who they had been, Olivia touched her right shoulder, feeling the mark through her blouse. And Ethan touched the left side of his chest, feeling the mirrored mark. 2 marks, 2 lives, 1 soul. Finally reunited. 6 months later, they married. Not in a grand cathedral, not in an extravagant ceremony, but in a small chapel in Aragon, Spain, about 50 kilometers from where Montfort Castle had stood, where it had all started and ended and started again. Lily was the maid of honor, Beatrice was the witness. And when the priest asked if anyone objected to the marriage, a wind blew through the chapel, gentle, like a sigh of relief. like a blessing from souls who had waited 700 years to see a promise fulfilled. Some marks aren't wounds. They're memories. They're promises the body refuses to forget. When Ethan first saw that mark on Olivia's shoulder, he didn't just recognize it. He felt the blade in his own hands. He felt the pain of having to wound to save. He felt the weight of 700 years of separation finally ending. And Olivia felt the phantom pain every time she touched the mark. But now, with the ring on her finger and the man beside her, the pain had turned into something else. Remembrance, not of trauma, but of sacrifice. Of a love so great it chose her pain over his death, and then chose his death over her life in danger. A love like that doesn't die. It can't. It's etched too deep, in flesh, in soul, in the very fabric of reality. A year after the wedding, Olivia was pregnant, and when their son was born, he had a birthmark, small, on his left wrist, the shape of a star, exactly where Orion would be in the sky, as if even a new life carried the memory of a promise made under those stars 700 years ago, and renewed under the same stars. In the present life, Ethan held his son in his arms. He looked at Olivia, and he understood. This wasn't the end. It was a continuation, a cycle that would continue. Through generations, through lives, because some souls simply refuse to exist apart. Today, the Sterling Grand Hotel has a plaque in the lobby. It tells the story of Diego de la Vega and Lady Isabella de Montfort. And below it, a photo of Ethan Sterling and Olivia Hayes Sterling, with simple text, 700 years, 2 lives, 1 promise. Love always finds its way back, and every night, when the hotel closes, and the guests sleep, and the city finally quiets, if you stand very still on the 12th floor, where the historical archive is, you might hear something. Maybe it's just the wind. Maybe it's the old plumbing. Or maybe it's the sound of 2 souls finally at peace, finally together, finally fulfilling a promise that should never have survived, but did anyway. Because love like that, love that transcends death, defies time, crosses centuries, that kind of love doesn't obey rules. It doesn't respect boundaries. It doesn't accept separation. That kind of love simply is eternal, unbreakable, real. And if you've ever felt an inexplicable connection with someone, if you've ever looked into the eyes of a stranger and seen home, if you've ever touched someone for the first time and felt a recognition that transcended logic, then you know, you understand. You carry your own mark, your own promise, your own story spanning lives. And the question is, do you have the courage to recognize it when your soul finds its other half? Do you have the courage to believe in the impossible? Do you have the courage to love when every rational cell in your brain screams that it doesn't make sense? Because sometimes the best things in life don't make sense. They just make you whole. Ethan and Olivia proved that, against all odds, against all logic, against 700 years of separation. Some souls simply refuse to forget, and some promises are too strong for death to break. This was one of them. So what's your story? What connection have you never fully understood? What person have you met and felt like you've known them for a very long time? What mark do you carry that's never made sense? Until now, share in the comments, because if this story touched you,